Dune is a game released in the early 90s by a company named Cryo on DOS, Amiga, and Sega CD. Now this version you're going to be seeing played out on this episode here was all played on DOS, but all the versions pretty much look the same and pretty much play the same. What's really cool about this game though, is not only does it take from the Dune novel by Frank Herbert, or even the Dune movie by David Lynch, but it kind of merges them together and adds new characters and ideas that are not seen in any of those two sources. It's pretty unique in that sense, but it also does something really interesting by merging a whole bunch of different types of gameplay into one. So, let's take a look at Dune. The video game landscape in 1992 was very, very different. There was Super Mario Kart, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Mortal Kombat, and Wolfenstein 3D, but a game like Dune simply had not happened, and for one very big reason. Those other games I mentioned were released in arcades, floppy disks, or even cartridges, but they didn't come out on CDs. But Dune was different, and because it came out on an optical disc, they were capable of doing this.
A beginning is a very delicate time.
Full motion video sequences might not seem like a big deal now, but back in the 90s, this was the cutting edge. Being able to take sequences from David Lynch's Dune and import them into the game gave it a unique feeling that was not common for its time. The developers didn't stop at using sequences from the movie, as they also animated sequences to simulate flying across Dune. But I'm getting way ahead of myself because I haven't even told you what the gameplay in Dune is like. And well, it's kind of complex. You see, the game first starts off as a point-and-click action-adventure game taking place from the first-person perspective. Now, this gameplay is pretty fun. You go around talking to people, and you get to explore the palace that you're in, and eventually, you get to go into these ornies. And the ornies allow you to fly across Dune, searching a bunch of other places, like Sieches, where you find the natives of Dune, Fremen, to basically work for you. And when that happens, they throw in a whole new style of gameplay, resource management. At this point, with the Fremen at hand, you go around Dune harvesting spice. And spice is native to Dune. You can't find it on any other planet, so it's incredibly valuable. And you're not the only one on Dune looking for this stuff. You play as Paul Atreides from the House Atreides, and your sworn enemies, the Harkonnen, are also on this planet enslaving the locals and wanting you dead. So, once you get your footing with resource management, they throw in combat gameplay into the mix. This was the first time I had ever played a real-time strategy, and although it doesn't operate the same way that a game like StarCraft would, at its core, you're still moving around units and attacking fortresses and other enemies. Most of the combat strategy games that existed around this time utilized a turn-based approach, but with Dune, the moment you start the game, a clock starts, and you've got a day and night cycle. Everything you do in this game takes time, and that time takes effect on the things you do in the world, like harvesting spice or attacking people. And that's what made this game, for me, a real-time strategy game, a real-time resource management game, and a real-time point-and-click first-person action-adventure game all in one. For a game this epic and different, you'd have to imagine that there was a lot of production behind it. And believe it or not, there was a point when we may have not actually gotten this game at all. The development of this game went through a bunch of problems, but what makes it really fascinating is that at some point, for some reason, two versions of the game were being produced at the exact same time from two different developers. Due to many issues, this game here was supposed to be canceled, but that didn't happen, and it finally came out in 1992, just a little bit before the other company released their game. And by a little bit, I mean just a couple months apart. Both Dune 1 and Dune 2, its sequel, developed by a completely different company, were released in the exact same year in 1992. Despite the fact that both of these games utilize the Dune franchise, they're not really related. They don't play the same, they don't look the same. But many would argue that Dune 2 was far more important than Dune 1, because you see, Dune 2 was made by this little-known company named Westwood Studios, and with Dune 2, they introduced the modern philosophies and concepts for real-time strategy games on the PC. But I think I'll be saving that game for another episode. When I was a kid, I found this game so difficult to play because it was mixing so many different genres together, and I really couldn't get my head around it. But as I've gotten older and went back to play the game, I ended up completing it and really enjoying my experience. There's a bunch of faults with it because it is really trying to mix too much stuff at once, but the game stands alone as something that you really can't find anything else quite like it. Dune is a really different game that's cool, and I wish more games are made like it, and it's something that I think you guys should try out.